Hi, and welcome to the instructional video for the IDT assignment number 2, ICTICT202, the work and communicate effectively in an IT environment. So here's the cover sheet. As you can see, there's a link to the units of competency there. Task context is there as well. Basically, what you're required to do is you need to conduct some research in order to create a Google presentation on common roles undertaken by IT specialist personnel and the contractual arrangements commonly used to employ IT professionals. You need to investigate a variety of enterprise policies and procedures, and they're listed here, and we'll go through them in more detail later. And then you need to respond to a variety of scenarios requiring you to communicate to both customers and your colleagues to demonstrate the fact that you can work in an IT environment. So, first part, part A, research presentation. You need to conduct research in order to create a presentation on the key players within organizations and the role undertaken by IT specialist personnel, such as help desk operators, network admins, hardware technicians, web designers, programmers, and ICT trainers. You're going to provide details about the role and its importance to an organization. You'll provide your source for each role covered. When completed, share the presentation with your teacher. So basically, this is going to be a Google presentation. You need to cover all 6 of these roles. You'll need to describe the role first, and then describe its importance to an organization, and then you need to provide sources. So you're probably looking at 1 to 2 slides for each role, maybe 1 slide for the role, and then another slide for the importance. And then you need to ensure you provide a source for your role. So what website did you get the information from, or article, or whatever it is you get the information from. Once you make that presentation, share it with your teacher and place a link here. You need to ensure when you make that presentation that you cover a few things as well to ensure your competency. So with part A, you need to provide details of all 6 roles. You need to provide source of information for all 6 roles. You need to complete the work in a presentation, and then ensure that you record key information in a sequential manner using required format, correct grammar, and industry-specific vocabulary. So we are checking for grammar and vocabulary here as well. Part 2, you need to choose one of the jobs listed above, okay? So one of these, and then find statistics for the number of people employed in this role, preferably statistics from Australia, but if you can't find them, it's not necessary. This is to try to work out how many people work in this role to see if it's a good role for you, assuming that you go into the IT industry after school. What's the current income range for people employed in this role? Again, preferably from Australia. What are some current trends in the industry that affect this role? So how is the role changing? Where is the role moving towards? List the types of firms that would employ this person. How would this person maintain industry currency? So how does the person stay current with their role? So how do they maintain the knowledge that is required? Obviously, with IT being a constantly changing industry, there's new technology all the time. How would someone in this role maintain the knowledge of technology to perform that role effectively? Also, if a firm does not wish to train specialized staff, they will have to outsource this role and define the term outsourcing. So right here, I just want a definition for outsourcing. And again, you need to make sure you cover all these things. So you choose a job, provide stats, provide current income, provide current trends, list the types of firms, and identify ways in which a person employed in this role might maintain industry currency. And then also, again, make sure you use correct format, grammar, and vocabulary. So there are a number of ways in which an organization can employ personnel, including industry reward, enterprise agreement, workplace agreement, or contract. So what you are required to do is cover all those 4 here. So for the award, you list the features. For the enterprise agreement, you list the features. For the workplace agreement, you list the features. For the contract, list the features. And again, describe the main characteristics and features of an industrial award, enterprise agreement, workplace agreement, and contract. For this one, you need to interpret a range of textual information to determine regulatory and procedural requirements. This one will be evident in the answer that you write. Also, that you record key information using required format, grammar, and vocabulary. Moving on to part B, you need to explain or define for me a code of conduct, and then examine the ACS's code of professional conduct and what the key responsibilities of someone following this code of conduct are. If we go through to here, you need to ensure that you describe a code of conduct, and again, give me the correct grammar. But also for part 2, you need to identify key responsibilities of someone following the ACS code of professional conduct. The textual information you'll interpret would be the ACS code of professional conduct, and then obviously using correct format, grammar, and vocabulary again. You'll need to define what a mission statement is. And so down here, you need to obviously describe a mission statement. And then examine Sony's mission statement and what are Sony's key priorities as taken from this mission statement. So you need to give me the key priorities. Obviously, the textual information you'll be looking at will be Sony's mission statement, and then correct grammar, vocabulary, format. Need to define for me a routine work process, and that is there. And then you need to find me a routine work process. So if you actually search for a routine work process, you probably won't find much, because we don't call them routine work process, etc., etc. So we just call it like a backup process or something like that. So I would like you to find a manual or a how-to guide or something along those lines on how to perform a common IT task, and then tell me what the common features of these are. If you look at a how-to guide, you're generally looking at a routine work process. So over here, you'll need to tell me the common features, and then again, the textual information you're interpreting would be the how-to guide that you look up, and you need to give me required format, grammar, and vocabulary. So next question, what is a management hierarchy chart? And so you need to tell me what that one is here. And then you need to examine the hierarchy chart from Bostez. So this will tell you the structure of Bostez and the departments and who's in charge of them. And then from this chart and your own research, explain the role of ICT within Bostez. So on the chart, there won't actually be ICT specifically stated. You'll need to look through the chart and work out where ICT actually fits in that chart, and then do a bit of research. You can talk to your teacher in terms of how Bostez works as well, and then you'll be able to answer that question in terms of explaining the role of ICT in Bostez. So going through again, explain the role of ICT within Bostez. The textual information will be the hierarchy chart in your research, and then again, format, correct grammar, industry-specific vocabulary. You'll need to then use the student acceptable use form, which is here. Examine the form and what it requires from you in the use of technology at the college. Assess whether students and staff are following the policy. Don't mention names, just use generalizations, such as some students or some staff members. So your job here is to assess whether students and staff are following this policy. So you would know through your interactions with other students or through your classes that not everyone would follow the policy all the time, potentially. So it is your job to look at that policy and assess whether students and staff are following the policy, identify places where they may not be. And again, don't use names, just use some students or some staff members. You have to assess students, whether students and staff are following the policy, and then the textual information is obviously the policy, and then again, key formats, grammars, and industry-specific vocabulary. Define the term EEO. So EEO is the, well, that's what you need to define, so I'm not going to explain it for you. You need to define EEO and then examine TAFE Western's EEO policy and describe what that says about the hiring practices of TAFE Western. So again, if you define the term EEO, it's over here, and you need to describe the hiring practices of TAFE Western. Interpret a range of textual information will be the TAFE Western policy, and then again, required format, correct grammar, and industry-specific vocabulary. Moving down, part C, the communication scenarios. So, scenario 1 is you're dealing in person with a client who has limited spoken English. List 3 different things that you can do to facilitate communication. Part B, you're dealing in person with a client who has a hearing impairment, and list 3 different things you can do to facilitate communication. And then research 2 different cultural backgrounds, complete the table below. So give me the cultural background, the languages that they speak, and the possible communication issues that may arise. Now bear in mind that communication is the two-way sending of messages. So not just you trying to deliver a message, but also then trying to receive it. So how can you ensure that you deliver a message they can receive, and they can communicate back to you? Going through here, we can see we need to list 3 different ways for select communication for a person who has limited spoken English, and then the same for hearing impairment. And we research 2 different cultural backgrounds, list languages they may speak, and then possible communication issues that may result. For this one, we need to ensure that we record key information using correct format, grammar, and industry-specific vocabulary. We need to ensure we follow policies, procedures, and legislative requirements relevant to own role. So legislative requirements could be the various legislations in terms of dealing with people with disabilities, for instance. Select and use appropriate conventions and protocols when communicating with others. You need to use appropriate interpersonal skills to encourage contributions and elicit ideas from others. Sequence and schedule activities, monitor implementation, and manage relevant communication. So obviously we're doing the manage relevant communication bit here. And identify barriers to consultation and apply problem-solving processes to determine possible solutions. So all of these things will be evident in the answer that you write. Moving on, part 2, the scenarios. Okay, so you work as an ICT desktop support analyst at ProTech, which is an IT company specializing in providing support and maintenance for IT equipment. And you need to respond to the following scenarios. For A, you need to write a reply to the email below. Dear ProTech, I'm currently using a Dell Studio XPS 435T desktop computer and it is running slow. What are my options for upgrading this machine? I mainly use it for internet and email, but my son also uses it to play the latest games. Could you let me know the parts I need, the price of the parts, and where I can get these from? So, in your answer, you would need to specify, firstly, you need to look at what the computer is meant to do, and then recommend some parts they can use to upgrade it to better fulfill its purpose. You need to list the specific parts that Jen needs to purchase, the price of the parts, and the store at which they can get them from. And this could be an online store. So, part A, receive the request, reply to the email, provide a list of appropriate parts. So obviously you need to record key information in a sequential manner using correct format, vocabulary, and grammar. Then follow policies, procedures, and legislative requirements relevant to own role to ensure that you do that. So relevant policies might be a workplace policy, legislative requirements in regards to how to work effectively, safely, etc. Selected and used appropriate conventions and protocols when communicating. Used appropriate interpersonal skills, sequence and schedule activities. So again, we're doing the manage relevant communication bit. And that's it. Part B asks you to create an internal memo. Your supervisor has asked you to issue an internal memo to all staff at ProTech, notifying them of the new additions and pricing for Windows 8 and the current Windows 7 desktop operating systems from their preferred supplier, Mwave. Create the memo in the box below or create it in a separate document, share it with your teacher, and place a link to it below. And you may wish to use formatting such as tabs, which is difficult to use inside a table. Might be easy to construct a memo outside the table, then paste it in. So your teacher will show you the standard memo templates. So you're going to need to ensure that you receive requests in a polite and appropriate manner that uses standard memo format, which your teacher will show you. You need to notify staff of the pricing, and then obviously record key information using correct format, grammar, and vocabulary. Follow policies, procedures, and legislative requirements. Select and use appropriate conventions and protocols when communicating with others in a range of work contexts. Appropriate interpersonal skills to encourage contributions and elicit ideas from others, and then sequence and schedule activities, monitor implementation, and manage relevant communication. Part C, you've been left the following telephone message. You attempt to call the client back, but he is unavailable and you have been redirected to his voicemail. Record the brief voicemail message you would leave with the client in response to his query. So John is looking for instructions on how to set up the new printer. You need to record this message using your computer, using your voice record program of choice. Save as MP3, upload to Google Drive, and share with your teacher here. So for part C, you need to receive requests in a polite and appropriate manner. You need to record voicemail addressing the original message, instructions on how to set up a printer, a promised email instructions, setting a meeting time, etc. So you don't actually have to give instructions on how to set up the printer in the voicemail, but you need to respond to the voicemail. Okay, and from answer, it is evident the student has presented information using language and non-verbal features, followed policies, procedures, and listed requirements, selected and used appropriate conventions and protocols, used appropriate interpersonal skills, sequence scheduled activities, model implementation, and managed relevant communication. Part C, question D. Role play and record the following situation. You must be the person asking the questions. So a client has entered the office and has initiated a conversation with you about installing Windows onto his MacBook Pro 15-inch. Question this client to better understand their needs and provide a solution for the client. Defer questions that you cannot answer, requesting a contact email address so you can outline these in an email to the client at a later date. Record your role play using Photo Booth or another program that you wish to use to record video. Upload to Google Drive and share with your teacher. So this one requires you to actually role play it. So one person will act as the customer and the other person will act as the employee. The person being marked will be the employee. So for your assignment, you need to make sure you are the employee with your role play, and then you might switch so that your partner can then be the employee for his assignment. So if we go to the marking criteria, you need to ensure that you role play the situation, you receive requests in a polite and appropriate manner, you defer a question that you cannot answer. So you need to make sure that the person asking the questions actually has a question that you cannot answer, or at least pretend to, so you can defer it. That way you can demonstrate that competency. You also need to present information using language and non-verbal features, use questioning and listening techniques, follow policies, procedures, and legislative requirements, select and use appropriate conventions and protocols, use appropriate interpersonal skills, and sequence and schedule activities, monitor implementation, and manage relevant communication. The client then sends you the following email. I left my MacBook with you 2 days ago to get Windows installed. I was just wondering when this will be ready. You need to reply to the email with an update on what is happening, explain why you have had to escalate the job, copy the email below. So you need to receive request, inform client of the progress of job, explain answers for escalation, and then it needs to be clear from your answer that you record key information using correct grammar, format, vocabulary, follow policies and procedures, select and use appropriate conventions and protocols, use appropriate interpersonal skills, and sequence and schedule activities, multi-implementation, and manage relevant communication.